My name is Liz Banuelos Castro. I'm the Internship and Diversity Programs Advisor here at the USC Career Center. I'm also joined today by Giselle Jose, who will be moderating the chat and the Q&A, and Lauren Opkenor, the Associate Director for Internship Engagement. And we are all the Internship Engagement team. And in addition to this program today, we also have Career Fest going on. I encourage you all to take a look at our events page to see what events and workshops you can join later after this event. And with that, we'll get started with our panel today with Aurora and Kachita. Can I have you both introduce yourselves and tell us about your organization? And Kachita, if you want to get us started.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Kachita Hines, and I have a events and marketing firm called Style on the Spot. And I'm also the founder of Fashion Week House, which is a production company for fashion shows in New York, Miami, LA, and London, and potentially some other countries later this year. I hail from the Midwest, went to college there, but moved out to Los Angeles a long time ago. So I feel like I'm a native, and I'm based here in Los Angeles.
Thank you, Kachita.
Hi, everyone. I guess it's my turn. My name is Aurora Elog. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I also wanted to take this time to offer a quick land acknowledgement as I'm zooming in from the Music Center in downtown LA, which is the land of the Chumash, Tongva, and Gabriello people. I'm currently the program manager in the Education and Community Partnerships Department at Center Theater Group, which is one of the largest and most active theater companies in the nation. We have 3 theaters, 2 of which are located at the Music Center, the Mark Tabor Forum and Amundsen Theater, as well as the Kirk Douglas, which is located in Culver City. Briefly about myself, I directly manage our paid training programs for emerging professionals and early career folks. So I started my career through internships and fellowships, specifically with a desire to continue my work in arts accessibility and arts education. And so it led me to this job now, which is really to focus on how to prepare the next generation of professionals.
That's amazing. Thank you both. We're happy to have both Aurora and Kachita here today. Now, in learning more about your industry, can you each tell us about the challenges and the benefits to working in your industry? Aurora, do you want to get us started?
I'm happy to, but I was going to ask, how long do we have? Mostly as a joke, but those are 2 very large buckets. So I'll try to provide what is sitting with me right now. I would say for benefits, personally, and I would say for a lot of folks that I work with, you're working in an environment of artists, creative people, or also people who strongly appreciate art. And so you're in a community with folks with the same passion and excitement around art, and sometimes a collective understanding and experience of how the positive impact of whatever art form that may be, or general art in general, right, has brought into our lives. And I'd say in addition to that, storytelling is one of my favorites, and you can really see that not only on stage, but also in the offices and backstage and in the shop. And so that is something that I love, and I think are great benefits to this industry. Challenges, I would say that there has to be continued work and more work in terms of like breaking down accessibility to working in theater. And that doesn't have to be just artistic. It includes technical design opportunities and also administrative work in the theater industry. And I guess on top of that, like thinking about performing arts in general, there's also a lot of work that needs to continue to be done in terms of growing and diversifying our audiences, and what audience means can mean a lot of things for folks, but that is a lot of things that we need to think about now too. And much more, but I'll stop there.
I can definitely, I think, agree with you on some of those same, I think we have some of the same paths, and it doesn't matter really what industry you're in, but I mean, I think I'll start with some of the, the benefits are, there's travel, there's so much, and I actually agree with you, Aurora, there's a lot of passion. When you work in any of these spaces, whether it's fashion, marketing, the arts, theater, entertainment, there's a lot of passion. I actually started my career as a entertainment and news reporter, and then worked at E! Entertainment, then MTV, wanted to get out of reality TV, worked at MGM Movie Studios for many years in the marketing department, ran digital and cable marketing there, went to Netflix, ran Latin America marketing, and then 10 years ago said, I want to own my own business. I want to be my own boss. And I say all of this because I think there's something really beautiful about our younger generation having this entrepreneurial spirit that's accepted. When I was your age, people thought you were crazy if you wanted to be an entrepreneur. So there's a lot of beauty to that, but there's a lot of experience that goes into all of these things. And so I think, there's a lot of benefit, but I think some of the challenges are we're on a new landscape because of COVID. I would not say we're in the clear. COVID has really changed events and marketing. So much of the way things were done, honestly, 3 years ago are archaic now. There's also, as odd as this is to say, even some of the marketing and event initiatives that I'm working on, for instance, for New York Fashion Week that we have coming up, it's going a little old school, even in the sense of like really that touch, feel, see, face-to-face interaction with guests at an event. Instead of just throwing up a QR code or, hey, check out our website, brands are wanting to get back in the face and in front of consumers, which is exciting to see because that brings a lot of new opportunities and creativity. And I think one of the things I do agree with Aurora on is diversity. It's a part of our field too, that, you're seeing so much beautiful diversity in fashion that was not there even 3 years ago. Because I think everyone had to stop, right? And I think as a community, as a world, we started paying attention to things that were not okay and things that were happening in different fields that needed to change. And I think that's also one of those things is women empowerment and women entrepreneurs in the fashion space, because it still is a little bit of an old boys network, more than you know. But I have to tell you, I'm really proud to see that some of these challenges are being met with change. So it's exciting.
Yeah, I think you both put that really well in the way that these industries are changing, and you are changing with them, and you are the ones changing them, right? As we see new students coming into the field, they bring new ideas, they bring new change to the industry. And in learning more still about your industry, what advice would you offer to students interested in a career in your industry?
I think if I was to jump in first, I would say that one of the hardest things I think is that with this industry comes a lot of passion and energy and drive. And I see that in all ages. It does not matter what age someone is in this industry. That's one of the coolest things is there's a lot of people that are young at heart because it takes a lot of energy to be in a space. But I think it's one thing I would say and encourage all of you as you take on internships and jobs is to listen. One of the best ways to learn is just to stop and listen, and to also understand your knowledge of where you are and what your strengths are and your weaknesses. One of the best things you can do for yourself is to know not just what you're good at, but what you're not good at, and to look for people who are willing to guide you and potentially give you that help and support to understand why is it not a strength for you, or understand how you can make it a strength by learning to do that. And I think with also sometimes that we're seeing with a lot of our younger audience and younger employees and interns is sometimes you've got to learn to walk before you run. And sometimes just by listening, you can do that.
I love all of that. That's actually something that something around those lines is what we share with our interns that come through our programs too, is definitely take the time when you're in those meetings and those spaces to listen, but absolutely share your voice, please share your opinions, but take that time before that. So I love hearing you say that. I would also add, I think I have advice in terms of two different scenarios, right? So if you're thinking about that entry point right before you start to enter the workforce, or right before you start to look for internship opportunities, is really meeting people. And the step before that is even take the time to research what are the pathways available in theater, what are pathways available in other industries as well, but what does that look like? You can pull up I'll use Center Theater Group as an example. You can pull up Center Theater Group's webpage for our staff list. You can see different titles. You can see the department heads or the department titles as well. If that doesn't look familiar to you, you're like, what is institutional advancement? I encourage you to look that up. One thing that I look at as I run the internship program here is like, have you done your research? If you are applying for an institutional advancement internship, do you know what that means? Can I tell in your materials? And so research is always something that I encourage before you even see an opportunity. You can start that in advance. You can start to meet people in advance and start asking questions. Curiosity is so, I think, undervalued and something that we overlook at times, but being curious and asking questions about how things are run is super valued. I'd love to talk about that. I'd love to question that with you. I'd love to have that conversation with you. And I can say that there are probably other people in multiple industries and theater as well that have that same desire. And I would say the other part of the advice, if I can remember, because I got so carried away about the research point, part of the advice, is that when you are in the actual internship, Aurora, do you actually remember what this was? I get carried away sometimes, y'all, and I get tangential. But when you're actually in the internship or when you are in the career workforce, I also encourage you all to think about boundaries. Sometimes when you're doing something that you're so passionate about, you can give all of yourself to it. And how do you determine the boundaries between work when you're working in your passion and also enjoying that passion, right? I want to make sure that this is no longer burnout for folks. I want to make sure when folks are continuing to work in this industry and their passion and their hard work, that they continue to have that sustained energy for it. So be clear about your boundaries, be able to say yes to the things that you want to do, but also recognize what you need to be able to say no, and that it is okay and you shouldn't take that, or I guess be hard on yourself about being able to say no. It's a long run, y'all. It's a long game, and I want to make sure y'all are healthy through it, and your mental health is also healthy through it, because that's so important.
That is such great advice to both of you. And I hope our students are taking notes, but you want to make sure that you are being present, that you are being curious in your internships to learn, right? That passion really shows when you're there. And to your point, Aurora, do your research, right? We are a research university, so they notice it. They take note of these things that you are taking initiative. Thank you both. It's so great advice. Great advice. I'm going to say this for every question, but I just love your insights so much. Now, shifting to thinking more about the internships themselves, what qualities do you seek in ideal interns, and what can a student do to stand out for the right reasons for their applications?
I can take this first, if that's okay. I think there's a lot of things I'm going to carry over from my advice to what I'm about to say now. So when we're looking for interns, we are absolutely looking for someone who's passionate, right? We're thinking about someone who's also not only passionate about the industry itself, but also the focus area of that internship too, because that is something that we may forget sometimes. We may focus so much on the passion of like, why do I love theater? And I think that's so important. But I also need to see, why is this specific internship something that you're interested about? And if I can see that in your materials, because if it's because this is my career, this is what I want to do after I graduate, you don't understand how strong that is to see. And it's like, oh, I would love to hear more about what your goals are, right? And that is something that I would love to continue to get to know a candidate about. This is more technical, but when I am looking for interns, I also want to make sure, and this is like what you can see through actions and through your materials, right? If you're consistent in your materials, and we think about things that we tend to overlook, is the hiring manager's name spelled right? Is the date of the year on that letter the same? Right? These are things that I'm like, oh, this person double checked their materials. And that's super technical, but there's so many things that you can read into materials, because these are like your marketing documents. I don't get to meet you. I don't have that opportunity. I'm using these two pieces of paper, if it's a cover letter and a resume, to determine if I want to continue to talk to you. And we are all busy people. We are all working hard. We want to meet everyone. But unfortunately, the reality is we don't have that time. So make sure you spend time on And I already said passion, but I still need to see the why. I can't emphasize that enough. And if you don't have experience in a specific area, which sometimes people feel really like, oh, I don't have no chance. If you tell me the why, you tell me the interest through experiences that you've done off campus, on campus, projects that you do, I'll be able to tell, I'll be able to see that. I can't speak for all hiring managers, but that is my personal experience when I'm looking for interns. Yeah, I mean, y'all, internships get really competitive too. So before you submit, please be sure you're ready. But I also say don't wait till the last minute either. It's hard to find the balance.
Yes, I can agree with all that. I think, I was lucky enough to have internships for myself in college that led me, and I can say this, led me to where I am today and helped make me develop as a person. It exponentially. I worked at MSNBC for one summer in New York City and Oxygen for another. And one of the things I want to tell you is, there were moments where in both those internships, I had to do things that were very much outside of the box of what I was described and told to do. That's normal. An internship is supposed to be mutually beneficial, but I was very fortunate in both of those internships because I had friends that were walking people's dogs, picking up their laundry, picking up their groceries. I don't believe in that. If you're going to work for me, and I think most internships now, it really should be a mutually beneficial experience. You should be getting something out of it as the employer, and you should be learning something out of it. And it's really one of the things I try to tell all of our interns is this is adult time. This is time for you to step into your own. I can't read your mind and you can't read my mind. So we have to communicate, but you have to remember it's not, when it comes to that communication, it can't just be about the way you're comfortable communicating. You have to learn how to communicate with different types of people because you're going to have to potentially work with different types of people and different people in your positions that you're working in. And so it's really helpful. And one of the things I learned as an intern was learn how someone communicates and what's the best way for them. And that way, let's say it's texting, let's say it's a phone call. A lot of you may not be comfortable with that, but I will tell you, if you want to be good in business, be good at picking up a phone and being able to talk to people. And that just that communication can literally make you stand out above and beyond anyone. I think one of the other things too that I learned as an intern was to think ahead. Always think about what my boss is going to want before they even know they need it. So I was always trying to be one step of both, like in front of them, not in a pushy way, but just observing, thinking, listening, taking notes. That way, if they needed to reflect, this is something too. Every one of our interns, they're actually not allowed to come to a meeting without a pen and paper. Because one of the biggest things you can learn as an intern that can help you in your career is what I like to call CYA, covering your you-know-what. And it's taking notes so that you don't let things fall through the cracks. A lot of you are used to taking notes in class. If you want to take notes the same way you do for class, that's fine. It's more for yourself. It's that really trying to make sure you don't let things fall through the cracks that you've been given. And also, one of the best pieces of advice too, and what we work on internally as a team with our interns is we like to have them repeat back. So if they're given a project, we like to have them repeat back. So to give you an example, they'd say, okay, so my understanding is that you need me to jump into our, Fashion Week files for 2019. You want me to go ahead, go through those, pick 20 pictures, and I'm going to go ahead and come up with some fun captions to promote those. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to make sure I get that back to you and also copy so-and-so and so-and-so. So it's a small step and it may sound annoying, but I will tell you it's something that can help you stand out because in that moment, you have to remember anybody that might be handing over a job, a task to you, they have potentially, quite honestly, hundreds of other things that are on their mind or that they're managing. And it's a huge help to be able to hand over that one task, but you giving that feedback to them, it'll make them even sometimes realize, wait, you also are going to need this, this, and this to do that task. Oh, wait, we're missing this, or this. And so that's just a piece of advice. And I think one of the other things I have noticed in recent years, and I'm just going to say it because I want to be transparent with you guys. And that's what this is all about, is getting some transparency into the real world, right? Is to really remember, when you take on these internships, this is the real world. It's adulting at its finest. And to really try to remember to keep drama out of the picture. Business is business. Everybody has their lives outside of work, but really being conscious of when you are at work, when you are at events, being professional, not standing around texting or things of that nature. It's just about being conscious of your body language, and your own actions can really, truly help you stand out.
Thank you both. I think to the students who have been to multiple,
Oh, sorry. I just had something to add because of something that you shared earlier, Kachita. It was the idea of like thinking ahead. And your example was wonderful because I always think about like, how can folks think ahead? And then I was thinking about it in the application phase, like you can also think ahead in the application. Something that I don't think folks think about enough is you can also mention in a cover letter, what are you hoping to gain from this internship? What knowledge are you looking to gain? Is it clarity around an industry? Is it to gain a certain skill? Because that also is a perfect way to tell me that what the expectation is of coming in. And so like think ahead in so many capacities. Like that is such good food for thought. Sorry. Just wanted to add that.
no, that's a really good point, Aurora. And to our students who wonder if you should submit a cover letter, if you have the opportunity, yes, this is your chance to show your passion, to really show why you're curious, why you're qualified, to all of Aurora and Kachita's points. And I love how you're both touching on the passion that really shows in interviews and resumes and cover letters, and why it's so important to love what you're doing, right? And also, Kachita, I love your point about communication. Very important. And it's more than just texting and emails. It's also knowing how to communicate in person, via the phone, and just finding ways to really connect with coworkers and start to build that network too, right? And I think that's a perfect segue into our next question. Networking is a huge part of the internship search. Do you have any tips or advice for our students? Maybe even students who've never networked before?
Absolutely. I actually got my first job out of college. I'll tell you a story about that. I came out my senior year to Los Angeles, and I reached out to a ton of alumni in the entertainment field. And I just said, hi, here's who I am. I'm going to be graduating soon. Instead of heading to Mexico for margaritas, I decided to come to California to get a job. Can I just come and pick your brain and bring you coffee? Out of doing that, I got multiple job offers. And that's how I got my first job, by doing my own networking. And why I say that this is so important. I actually have a call later today with actually an assistant he was an assistant at the same time I started my first job at Entertainment. This is like over 20 years ago. And we still are in touch today and helping each other out in business to this day. I have numerous friends from internships that I did while I was in New York that we are now, we've all climbed the ladder together, supported each other when we've fallen, helped each other get back up, because careers have ebbs and flows. But that networking is so imperative. And I think if you go about networking where it's not about what can you do for me, but more about here's what I can do for you, you will always excel and really build true, lasting relationships and even friendships.
I love all of that. I can't even uplift or retweet. I don't know if I just made myself really nerdy right now, or anyways, we're gonna forget that I said that. But I uplift everything that you're saying. I absolutely agree. Networking is so important, and I look at it as community building. And thinking about where you are right now in Los Angeles, and then I think about specifically about the theater community in LA, and how big and yet small it is, and how everyone knows each other, how everyone is a part of someone else's projects. Like that is a beautiful resource. It's also a beautiful community. So think about how you can include yourself and immerse yourself in that community. It's through building community, and it's what are the theaters in your 5-mile radius, right? Are they having any shows that interest you? Go see the show. Meet the folks the artists and the technicians and the designers of the show. Meet the community that's watching the show. Build, like, with the intention of building community and introducing yourselves and with those lasting relationships. It's not only going to lead to opportunities, but it's also going to lead to the opportunities after opportunities, right? Like, you can get an internship and you can continue to have that community in that organizations that you have, but thinking about the outer community is so important that we tend to overlook. I can't help but say this again and be a broken record, but research is incredibly important. You have the internet. Google is strong and mighty. Use it. Find someone that has the same interest that you. Like, I can't even say how LinkedIn has changed the game. You have everyone's resumes online. You can find someone that works there. You can find someone who probably took the same major as you, maybe went to the same school as you. I had to go through my professors who then had to go through Rolodexes of alumni that maybe majored and potentially did the same thing that I was doing, right? Which is also a really great tool. Please talk to your professors. There's an alumni network everywhere, not only in school. Think about it in volunteer organizations. Think about everywhere. There are connections everywhere, and just thinking about it outside of the box is a great tool. But research is super important. Research, the organization staff, I already said look up a staff page, but all of that is even like informational interviews. Like, you coming into a meeting, if you were to do a cold call of like, hi, I really love the career trajectory. I have a lot of alignment in what you did. Would love maybe a 20 minutes to have a conversation, and then ask them questions. Ask them questions about what they did, what they've done, what do they have advice. Be inquisitive in that space, and do not let it go silent. Like, prepare those questions. That's not only going to show your ability to have that conversation, but it again shows that you're interested, invested, and have done the research.
I really want to just like totally applaud you on that as well, because I think you nailed it with LinkedIn. If you don't have a LinkedIn account, literally after you get off this call, go make one. I'm going to give you an example. My husband eats candy like a fat kid, and he had these little jelly bears, and they're like they're from Sugarfina. I got on LinkedIn and I sent a message to the CEO, and I was like, I want these at Fashion Week to give to all of my influencers. Can we jump on a Zoom? I have a call with him tomorrow morning. Do not ever be afraid to reach out to anyone. This is just a fact. I mean, I'd say 90% of my networking isn't really through the events. Now, a lot happens at the events, but I get pulled in 500 ways. It's actually through LinkedIn. A lot of the brands that work with us, LinkedIn. So wow. I definitely really agree with you on that. That it's in the research too. I agree on that as well, because just doing research can show you a little bit about one of the best things you can do for yourself, even if you're building a LinkedIn, research someone you want to be like, someone whose dream that you're like, their job is like, you're like, that is my dream job. Go get on LinkedIn. Look, like you said, you can literally look at their resume essentially online, but you can also see where else did they work? Where else, how did they get to where they got? This is one of the things a lot of people forget with LinkedIn. You get to look at somebody's ladder. And in the past, you didn't get that. And it can be such an educational thing for you.
Absolutely. Can I do it on too? Or like, I have another add-on, because like, I love an anecdote, I love a story, I love an example, and I think those are things that we can absolutely relate to. I was in an interview process. I was as an interviewer, a group interviewer. And the day before, I got a notification on LinkedIn that this person looked me up, and it said name and whatever. And I recognized that was the person I was meeting with the next day. I was like, oh, okay, maybe they forgot to hide their profile, whatever. I actually kind of liked it, because I already knew in advance she looked at my profile. She had this prepared. At the portion of the interview where we said, do you have any questions for us? This candidate had a question for every single person that interview, and it was relevant to maybe the work that they did, or how their potential work in that new position would intersect, and how would that work between the two, right? But how amazing it was, like it was just kind of like light bulb moment. This person has done the research. She asked me about my history, my work experience, and it was like, you just get 5,000 points for that. Like, you just get 5,000 points. talk about standing out in an interview is doing your research. Gosh, I'm just gonna change my title to Aurora Elog Research because I can't stop saying that.
All great advice. And I really love what you said, Kachita, about don't be afraid to reach out. Cold call. It's totally fine, especially like LinkedIn and Trojan Network. A lot of people are happy to share their experiences with you all and give back. And now in shifting a little bit to the Q&A from our audience, I'm going to ask a few questions for some specific to each of you, some to both of you. But our first is, what advice would you give to students who have no experience in design, but are seeking a design internship in terms of resume and interview? Either of you can take it.
Okay. I think, well, for instance, for the fashion space, we have design in a lot of ways. There's designers, clothing designers, but we have graphic designers. And I think I'm a big believer, like I didn't start my career knowing how to do everything. I was fortunate along the way to have some really good people who taught me, but I also did the work myself. And I think don't ever be afraid to apply. I always tell people, don't be afraid to apply for a job if you don't have all the skill set. As long as you're honest and transparent and say, I may not know how to do this and this, but I am awesome at these things, or I have such strong strengths here, and I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to put in the time with your current team members, or if you give me materials on my own that I can focus on at home, whatever it can take. I'm always open to that.
I in terms of like what I usually tell folks when I talk about internship applications, because I do think there's immense crossover for job applications as well. But if there's an area that you're missing, or if there's a field that you don't necessarily have demonstrated experience, there's always a portion where you can also talk about the gains, right? Like, what are you hoping to learn? What are you hoping to gain out of an internship or a job? But with that is also recognizing what the gaps are, right? It shows me self-awareness. It shows me that you are reflective and evaluating where you are in your work, and you know what those gaps are that you need to fill to be successful in this position. And I think those are areas that you can definitely look into to support your materials. If you don't have experience in design, I'm just rereading this question because I want to make sure that I can provide additional support there. But if there's wiggle room, I guess, too, before the application period, or that that's something that you're interested in doing, look for opportunities in volunteer situations or anything like that, meeting a mentor, meeting someone in the field, and talk about what are opportunities that can get involved, so that you can continue to gain that skill set. That's work that you can start doing now if you're looking to continue to build that resume. So it doesn't always have to be in a professional setting. There are things that you can do off campus or even on campus to get you that head start. And if you are at USC currently, start thinking about the professors that are in that industry or in that field to start getting you there, because that's something that you can put in your materials. I talked to a professor, we've done this together. He showed me how to do this. She showed me how to do this, right? So think about what you have access to resources now.
Yeah. And I think some of this goes back to connecting with people in the field already to see what are some of the skills that you can still build on, how you can build on those skills, right? And touching on your points earlier about networking, another question we had is how do you reach out to potential employers and find their contact info, or really how do you network or recommend networking?
LinkedIn. Or I will also say a lot of websites for businesses, if you go to the website, the phone number on the website is actually just a 1-800 like customer service line. When I want to like call a business, I just get on Google and I type in like corporate phone and then the business. And in a lot of the time you can actually get their direct corporate line and get through to an operator that could potentially, put you through to whether it's the HR department or, if it's an alumni from your school, someone that you could leave a voicemail with, or get an email to send the information if you have no other way of tracking it. And that's just one kind of tip there. Anything about you, Aurora?
Mm-hmm. I sometimes, this is where I want to I always do a preface or like a warning before. Look, hiring managers are all different. We all have different preferences. Make sure you look, if you're looking for something that has like an active open position, look at that website first, because there may be a note of please do not call or contact. Yeah, and that's gonna That's not going to be good.
That's
If they
true.
say, do not call me, and you
Do
call,
not call them.
do
Then
not call.
you won't get the job. That's
Do
true.
not call. And
Very true.
also maybe not follow up if like the job has only been posted for 2-3 days. I love the passion there. I gotta filter through a lot of things, y'all.
That's true.
But if you are looking like how to reach out to employers, LinkedIn, like Katrina says, and researching websites, like honestly, it's probably not the best thing to say because I work here, but like if you look at my email, it's the first letter of my first name and my last name at ptgla.org. There are a lot of like standard ways that folks do emails there. You could do a cold email that way. If it's more of like a, I would love to get to know you and potentially have this connection for the future type of thing. But definitely if there's a live application, can't help it. Like emphasize enough, make sure you read the instructions and what the preferences are there.
Right. And if there's like a company that you see that doesn't have a position open, but it is somewhere you want to work, just start following the company. I mean, you have to remember LinkedIn has SEO. Follow the company's page, link maybe with their HR director, and you never know, then they could potentially find you when they are ready.
Right. There's also a bunch of recruiting organizations, talent acquisition companies or departments or whatever you want to call that, that you can start building those relationships with of, hey, I'm looking for a position. Can you keep an eye out for me?
Yeah, thank you both for your transparency too, and maybe not spamming an employer or hiring manager, but definitely
don't spam.
It's okay to follow up. And another audience question that we had, again, related to networking, are there any organizations you would recommend joining? And are there any events you would recommend going to in order to network in your industry?
Oh yeah, go ahead, Aurora.
Oh, okay. I would say, I think I mentioned this earlier. And I'm thinking about theater specifically. So and you can think about this about a lot of performing arts, and there's a lot of like overlap there too. But if you see a show, if it's a small theater, the chances is that you can definitely make a direct connection at that show. Maybe set up a time to connect with them after, like for a coffee or anything like that, to just really gauge their career trajectory. I say that because it's a wonderful entry point. People love to talk about themselves, and I don't mean that in a vain way, but to be able to impart what someone has done to be able to get to where they are now is something that I think a lot of folks are really open to doing when it's under the intention of I'm looking to grow, I'm looking to enter this career, I'm looking to enter the workforce. So thinking about what is the industry that you're looking at, what are events that they're hosting, or what are smaller scale organizations in the community that you could start building that muscle of like networking, I would say is my suggestion there.
I think, for especially recent grads, one thing that's I always tell people to remember is, before you graduate or when you're graduating and let's say you're moving somewhere out of your community that you've built through all of college, make sure to create your own community, whether that's finding alumni groups, organizations, or people who have like-minded activities. Even those things like that can create tons of opportunities beyond just like social experiences. I'd say, like, for instance, when I moved to LA, I really did not know anyone. I had gone to every professor before I moved, and I moved soon after graduating, but before I left, I went to every professor that I was close with through the years, and I just said, hey, I'm moving to LA. Do you know anybody that I could just have as a friend, or who could give me advice, or that just I could reach out to? And actually, I had a theater minor, and my theater professor said, hey, Kachita, call these 3 guys. They're actually just from the class above you. They're all really good guys, really good people. Just reach out to them. I'll let them know. And he said, I'll make sure they treat you like little sister. And these guys watched out for me for years. They'd be like, do you need a job? Do you have anything to do this weekend? Do you want to come watch some football? And it was one of those things where it's also about creating, when you're networking, think about the community that you're creating and building. And when it comes to organizations, I would just say, join organizations about things you're passionate about, because then you'll always have a connection with anyone that you're around. I joined an organization when I moved to LA that was like people just from Nebraska. And I met like Dermot Mulroney, because I guess he's somewhat from Nebraska, has family there. I got to meet tons of amazing people in the industry, in my industry, but also outside of my industry. I got invited to things, my first Thanksgiving I was going to spend alone. I got invited to a Thanksgiving dinner. So I would just say, even while you're in school, these are things that you can do, is that start to create your network outside of just whether it's your sorority, fraternity, educational groups, sports, whatever it is. Start to think outside of just the small community and broaden that, because truly your net worth is your network.
I love that, Kachita. Your network is your net worth. Aurora, did you want to add something? Or you unmuted?
Oh, just quickly, there's an organization that I just remembered, which is wonderful for emerging professionals. It's Arts for LA Emerging Artist Leaders, something along those lines. You can Google it, it'll come up. But they're a wonderful organization. They also provide a stipend for tenure, like during your term throughout that. So really great opportunity for folks.
Thank you, Aurora. And I have a quick follow-up question for Kachita. A student asked, what would you look up on LinkedIn for someone interested in fashion and digital design internships?
I would say I would look up companies. I would start with companies where you would want to work, or companies that you like. Even if you don't know if you would want to work there, just companies you like. Start to look at what are the positions that they have open, or what are the things that they're posting about, because a lot of businesses, especially in our fields, are pretty active on LinkedIn with posting about here's what's new. I mean, even like Netflix, here's what's happening, here's what's new. Or even if their page isn't, look at some of their executives, like the top executives of the company. What are the CMOs, the chief marketing officers posting about? Or in fashion, if you like certain brands, look at what they have coming up and happening, and just kind of follow their job boards if they have them. That's one way. And truly, also, a lot of this is going to social media, what's happened with TikTok and Instagram. And I'll say this, what will be happening within the next few years with TikTok, especially, and brands, is going to change. The landscape's going to change, but it's going to continue I think in the way it's been, but it is going to change. It's going to be a lot less about, I think, the influencers that aren't contributing, more so about people who are actually making a difference. You're going to see a lot of finances going into that. That's when I say that, I'm talking about even like designers that are all about sustainability. Every brand that works with us for Fashion Week, like Coca-Cola, all these brands, right? They want to work with the designers that are all about diversity and sustainability. That's going to change a lot. So it's exciting to see those things, but that's what I would just suggest, is look into companies that you respect and you also value their belief system. And I think I would just say that to all of you. One of the best things you can ask in an interview is to ask, like, what do you guys stand for? Like, besides just your company statement, but also to recognize and know, a lot of companies will say they have a culture of something, but they don't stand truly by it. So really asking those questions too, I think in this field, whatever capacity you want to go into, in entertainment, marketing, theater, it's always good to understand the culture of the environment where you would work.
Thank you, Kachita. And now shifting back to the internships at your organizations, can you tell us about what kind of projects you have your interns work on? Aurora, do you want to start?
Sure, I'm happy to. So try to figure out how to best start this off. Our internship programs are project based, and of course each project per internship is different depending on what those slate of opportunities are each cycle. And I could give examples to provide better idea about that, but our philosophy and how we approach internships and how we create those opportunities are really learning learning the key skills for each individual department or each individual focus area. So for example, we had a special events internship that was recently on our website for the spring. And so what you would see there is that this internship is during this time of year because it would be focusing on our gala, which is a large fundraising event that's coming up this spring. So what projects included there would be researching the basic bones of what is needed for hosting a special event, right? To be able to communicate that, to be able to communicate what that process is so that we can see if you've understood what that was. And then the execution portion of it. So you'll be a part of the planning, you'll be a part of those discussions with multiple departments around this huge event. And then the execution comes. The evening, the week of that event, you'll be a part of to do the tasks in order for that event to take place. We also had a marketing internship where it seems very similar to that because there are a lot of project planning in terms of like project management. I would like to say is very applicable across jobs in various capacities, right? So you'll notice that for this marketing internship, it's similar. You'll be a part of the discussions around promotional campaigns. You'll be a part of those brainstorming and then the actual planning and then the execution. A lot of our internships has a focus on financial literacy. So we'll include you in conversations about budget planning to get to dip your toes in what that looks like. But again, they really vary depending on if the internship is with the human resources department, the marketing department, they all vary, but with the focus of at the end of the project, you're gaining the skill that would be needed to have a job, an entry-level job at the end of this internship in that specific department or focus area. I hope I answered that.
I think that I think it's what's cool to see, and I feel like I'm seeing more and more, Aurora, you just said it right there, is a lot of these internships are leading to actual positions and jobs. And I love to see that's happening more and more. Like with a lot of our clients, we're seeing that. So for us, we have a lot of different levels of positions because we do events in multiple cities. You know, we've got New York Fashion Week, Miami Swim Week, LA Fashion Week, London Fashion Week. And so we do internships in each city to give the opportunity because yes, we're based here in LA, but we don't want to leave out those cities and not give the opportunity. So I've worked closely with schools in all those areas to make sure that there's opportunities. So if it's an event for us, we've got internships where it's, you know, assisting with checking in guests. It's making sure the TikTok star that just showed up goes and gets their photo at the step and repeat. It could be seating guests. It could be helping designers style backstage. It could be making sure the models are lined up. So for our events, there's just a lot of different things, but we're very specific. We have training that we do Zoom training actually before all of our events, actually a minimum of 2 trainings all interns have to do. And then we actually have internships here in Los Angeles. And with our interns here, they have kind of focused internships, whether it's focusing on research of new designers. We love to work with up and coming designers, student designers also. So every city give, 1 to 2 show opportunities for younger, or not necessarily younger, but just up and coming designers. Beyond just the major designers that we work with. So a lot of our interns are the ones that are helping us do that research. Also, social media research. We always have to know who's the hottest, who's the hottest person on TV right now, or, who's the hottest blogger that's doing this, or, all of that kind of stuff that is like really fresh and like in the news and someone that, really should be at our event. So I think what we love is that we have, people of all ages coming together to decide, okay, let's make sure these people are in attendance and getting the word out about new designers or what their story is or how they're doing it. There's a lot of podcasters now that actually attend Fashion Week and do interviews, which is really cool to see. So our interns help us in a lot of research, actually, and outreach.
Your internships for both of you sound really hands-on. They sound like a great experience for students to really get a feel for the industry and for both organizations. As a quick follow-up to you, Kachita, a student asked, how do you do hiring for Fashion Week modeling?
For modeling, we do, so a lot of our events that we do, we've done the big shows where it's like 500 plus people buy tickets to. It's very different. It's very different type of fashion show. That's more of an entertainment show. But our focus really is the shows where they're invite only. And that even goes for like modeling. So a lot of the model agencies and or models that don't have representation, they submit to us. And then if they're approved and once they've been vetted, so each designer, we know what they're looking for. And so once they kind of get vetted through the system of who they could be a good fit for, then they get submitted to that designer. Then the designer actually reviews, and then they get invited to an in-person casting. So for us, like when I say technology and a lot has changed in the 3 years, a lot has changed. I did a shoot with Britney Spears' husband during the pandemic at a hotel that wasn't even open to the public. Everybody had to be tested. It was a crazy experience. But what I'll say is like for even for that shoot, it was like the first time we really did, everything was done online before everyone was in person that day. It was really a cool experience because I've always said there's got to be a better way than having, 500 people show up and stand in a line. So I think you're going to see a lot more of fashion finally using technology more and more.
Thank you, Kachita. And for students who are interested in finding internships at your organizations, when can they look and where should they look? Either of you can jump on.
I'm happy to. So as a full scope of the internships that's in the theater group, we offer it 3 times a year, fall, spring, and summer. What is on deck now from this point moving forward is our summer internships. Those will open April 4th. I can't provide any ideas of what type of internships or what the slate of opportunities are currently because we'll be doing a process of checking with all the departments a couple months before that, but April 4th, all of that information will live on our website. It's www.centertheatergroup.org/internships. We love a vanity URL. These internship programs are specifically with theater administration and arts administration. If folks are on the call that are interested more in design, technical pathways or artistic pathways, we have the apprenticeship program that has a different schedule. So if you have interest in that, you can sign up for our newsletter, which I can share this information with Liz to share with folks if that's easier. But just a little glimpse of what we posted in our internship program in the past. We posted internships in human resources, marketing, communications, our education team, community programs, theater management, IT or information technology, and many other more. That didn't make sense. But give me grace, y'all. But how our program is kind of broken up, our undergraduate level internships are 10 weeks long with 16 hours per week. So that happens in every cycle. And just a little tip for folks who are interested, summer and spring are our most competitive cycles because that is just normal across internship time. So keep that in mind. And then fall will tend to see a smaller applicant pool. Just keep that in mind as you're setting schedule for your next school year or for fall coming, because we do require 2 full days in office or hybrid, but 2 full days available for the internship.
And for us, we basically have the different cities, but then we also have interns that, depending on your requirements for your school and time frame for that, we do as well. So I did post in the chat, you can actually email resumes to info@styleonthespot.com. And if you could just put into the subject line internship and, just note what kind of internship it is that you're looking for, and happy to have those reviewed, and we'll reach out for interviews. And then for models, I know that there was someone that had a question about that. We do have models at styleonthespot.com. Just send an email and then they'll send you a form to fill out.
Thank you both. And as a final question before we wrap up the panel, what is one takeaway that you'd want our students to walk away from this panel, to have as they walk away from the panel?
I would say this, I think a great example is like listening to Aurora, like I've been able to take something away today, right? I feel like I've learned something. It's that reminder of research, right? And the importance of that in any role. Because so often I think we forget, I think we forget it's, if you educate yourself, you're always going to be ahead of the curve. And I think that's something that's just, it's good to remember, because it doesn't matter what your age, it doesn't matter what your level is, where you are in your career, as long as you continue to educate yourself, I feel like you always will come out ahead, and not just ahead, but like smarter and more involved when you know what's going on around you and in your own field. So I'd like to say that's my takeaway, even just for myself today.
A takeaway. um Gosh, so many things were shared today, but I don't think I've necessarily touched on this, but I would love to include this before you all log off, is that this is definitely a moment, y'all. Like, we are welcoming a new generation of artists, professionals into our industries, to our fields constantly, right? Every time graduation approaches, we're welcoming a new generation. I just encourage you all to apply, to be courageous in that, but also to remember when you're in those spaces how important innovation and creativity is, especially after we're coming out of a pandemic. We specifically about theater, how that has been such an in-person experience together activity, and because of the shutdown orders, we were forced to really re-envision what theater is. And I applaud not only schools but also theater organizations who were able to do that. And so I encourage you all that we are able to change a field, we're able to be the change makers and make an industry that is better for everyone. So walk into it innovative, walk into it creative, listen. Like Kachita mentioned, you always need to listen to. But this is an amazing time. It's an amazing time to really push, I don't want to say boundaries, but really push and create a new space that's truly better for everyone. So I hope you all walk away with that.
Thank you so much, Aurora and Kachita. That was amazing. Thank you for being panelists today. You provided a lot of insight into your industries, into your internships. And I think myself, Giselle, and Lauren, we all learned something from you both. So again, thank you for spending time with us this past hour. And to our students, thank you all for attending. As a reminder, we do have Career Fest. Lauren put a link in the chat for you all to check out the events we have going on this week and next week leading up to Career Fair. And with that, thank you all for spending this hour with us, and have a great rest of your day, everyone. Thank you, Aurora and Kachita.
You're welcome. Thanks, you guys. Take care.
Have a good one, everyone.